I think every taboo is just a taboo you have to get over. You know, and I think there's probably going to be some connections. Like, heads on things. Like that's a
cannibalism.
Cannibalism.
Just need, the food truck with cannibalism stuff going on, and
now it's acceptable.
It's acceptable. It's delicious.
It's just all about.
It's just called people tacos.
Butterscotch shenanigans. Hey everybody, welcome to episode 201 of Coffee with Butterscotch, the game dev comedy podcast, Butterscotch Shenanigans. I'm Seth, and I'm the games programmer.
I'm Adam, and I'm the web waggler.
I'm Sam, and my throat's burned out.
And this is a show where we talk about life, business, and working in the games industry. Today is April 2019.
My favorite double of the year.
Before we get started, we have a warning. There's going to be profanity in this show. So if you don't want to then you go on and get out of here.
Scoot on out of here. Scallywag.
We'd also like to thank our supporters over at moneygrab.bscotch.net. We got some messages this week. Gabe says, Monkey Shoulder is a blended Scotch whiskey that is only $28, but is definitely a good drink. And that way, if you really enjoy it, you won't feel bad buying another bottle. So he wants us to use his coffee donation to get hammered.
Excellent.
So whiskey donation.
Yes.
It is launch week still. So
so thank you for that. And Satellite says, guys, it might be a while before your game comes to iOS. Hopefully not. But to tide you over in the meantime, here's $28 worth of cups of butterscotchy goodness. Love the games and love the podcast. Keep up the strong work. Thank you very much. And we also have a bunch of recurring supporters, so thank you all as well. All right, let's talk about life before. All right, so first of all, Levelhead launched into early access on Thursday.
On Steam, on Windows.
On Steam, on Windows. Before we get into that, I have a really important thing.
Super important. Let's hear it. What do you got?
I was listening to the radio this morning.
Okay.
And I noticed something that I hadn't really, truly appreciated. And it's that on the radio, announcers, every few minutes, whenever they're leaving a segment, they tell you who they are, right?
Yep.
They'll be like, I'm Steve, and this is blah, blah, blah.
There's a guy named Funky Pants in St. Louis who's on the radio all the time.
I'm Funky Pants, and
you're listening to Fresh Air.
Now,
with Gary Burbles.
Gary
Burbles.
I was thinking about how great this is because it's a very humble thing to do, right? The announcer's like, you don't know me. You just came in, like, you don't know me. You're not going to remember my name, right? Mm-hmm. And so the radio sort of culture, the radio industry has taken upon themselves to be like, I'm just going to keep saying my name. Anytime I'm ducking out of a situation, I'm just going to like peek my head back in right at the end and be like, this is who I am.
It's kind of like at the end of a walkie-talkie communication where you say over, but instead you say your name.
Right. I was thinking, it would be so great if this just was a thing that people did in normal conversation.
Just all the time?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yep, agreed.
You'd be like, hey, I'm Seth Koster. I'm about to go grab us some more drinks from the bar. Does anybody need some? Right?
Okay. And then somebody else would be like, hey, I'm Steve Humbledorf, and yes, I would like one of those.
I would like one.
It reminds me of in social situations, you meet someone for the first time. I'm always so concentrated on just like trying to listen to them that for some reason, I always just forget their name. Like I ask for it, and then it's just gone.
Yeah, I can't. I can't. Hold
and I think
on
it's because I'm so ready for whatever the next part is, and so I would especially appreciate
to engage in conversation.
Yeah, to get this sort of in the meeting a person circumstance.
Well, I think also because when you first meet somebody, there's a moment there where you're not quite sure what's coming, right?
Yeah.
Maybe there's going to be a hug. Maybe there's going to be a handshake.
Maybe
it's
very stressful time.
Maybe a fist bump. Maybe it's going to be one of those wacky handshakes that have 8 steps to it, and you don't know. So you're kind of prepping. You're prepping yourself, and in all that, and also you're introducing yourself.
That's true. You're thinking
you got to not fuck that up.
Yeah, and you're trying to take quick note of like, who is this person? What's their deal? You're trying to take in all the info, and the one thing you always miss is their name. And then you don't want to say after 1 minute, like, I'm sorry, what's your name again? Because they literally just said it. And that's not a good look, for you.
Nope.
So it would be great if either two things. One, we introduce this new mode of operating where anytime you're about to sort of like move away from a conversation, just like a Pokemon, just say your name again, right? The other would be...
Should we do this in the podcast?
Which we should.
Because people can't tell us apart, apparently.
I'm Seth Koster, and I'm about to say something else.
Yep.
So the other option is, what if when you greet somebody, instead of a handshake, instead of any of that stuff, we introduce a new way of greeting that happens first, which is you both walk up to each other. You no interaction at all, except just look at each other. You say your name, they say their name. And you just do that a couple times.
But here's a problem. Who says their name first?
Yeah.
Oh no! Now we're stuck
You're
again.
so stuck.
Yeah.
Whoever is more southward, I think.
This is why I
would
still
be-
think it's funny.
So you have to
People are
bring
like,
your compass along with you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or just be from the Midwest because you generally know where
That's true
where
too.
your cardinal directions are.
This is why I do think it's funny whenever I see people at GDC or whatever else who are tweeting out about how awkward social situations are, for them. And I'm like, they're awkward for literally everyone.
Everybody.
Meeting people is just
It sucks.
weird. Well, it's just because it's just awkward. It's
You just got to get past that super stressful initial.
just that
entry
first
point.
2 minutes.
Yep.
That's it. And then
Then it's
sometimes you're
fine.
with someone, you're like, that was the most 2 minutes. That's like all I need from you ever in my life.
Now I
You
got
know?
a
You
GTFO.
can get out of here. My name's Sam. Bye.
I'm Sam. I'm out of here. Yeah. So we got to make this a thing.
Mhm.
I want people to weigh in on this. We need to figure out how to get this. How do you start a new cultural trend? How do you do it? What's the move?
I don't know.
Do we know? I don't know.
I don't know.
All right. Anyway, I had to get that off my chest.
I'm glad you
I'm
did.
Seth. I needed to say that.
I'm
All right.
Adam, and I agree with that statement.
All right. Let's talk about Levelhead. We launched into early access on Thursday morning. So we had the Steam pop-up, or one of the Steam pop-ups, I guess. We launched it onto Steam, early access for $20 on Windows only. So for starters, let's talk about bugs, crashes, putting out fires. How did that go in terms of smoothness?
Yeah. So it was great because I think we just had we had one data loss bug, which is
Being resolved.
a big result.
We know where it is, so
And-
we'll fix
And
it.
it's
I
with the
think
campaign, not with the levels that you're making, which I think is
Now,
somehow
notably,
better.
if you're picking up Levelhead for the first time, just don't force quit the game. Just save and exit it normally until basically Wednesday when we get this bug fixed. And then you can do whatever you want. You can abuse it however, whatever. It's
Yeah.
fine.
So we just had that one, which wasn't even like actually that big of an issue. And then we had one or two crashes, I think, right?
Just one.
Just one.
Yeah.
One known crash.
And this is over. a
Well,
cumulative-
and Windows 7 users can't get on the internet, apparently.
There's- that was
subset
the
of
big
them.
one, I
I
think.
think that's the most problematic one that I really hope we can get resolved. Unfortunately, we have no idea why this is happening.
Yeah. And unfortunately, it's not in our control. It's our engine. So we got
Or something weird about
But we've
the
got
operating system.
feelers out. We've got people on it.
Yeah.
But if any of you are one of the people affected and have figured it out, please let us know what it was that was going on.
So it was very smooth, and I think a bunch of this has come down to, again, the DevOps strategy that we've developed, which is the game is tested, is just thoroughly tested before it even hit the open market, and so we've generated thousands of hours of playtime now over this past couple of days, and had one crash and just a few people hit this data loss bug, which is incredible. And so the team was actually able to Thursday, of course, everyone's just kind of freaking out because the game's out, and so we'd already just set aside. We essentially did a simulation the day before, and we said, okay, so Thursday in particular, everyone should really just be focused on hanging out, because the reality is no one's going to get anything done anyways.
Yep.
So,
Hanging out, putting out fires. Those are your only two things.
and there were no fires to put out.
Yeah, keep an eye on Twitch, on YouTube, just like see what's happening around the game.
And so everyone just kind of got to hang out, which was nice. And then throughout the weekend, that just kind of continued. So there weren't any large issues. We even had a stream going on the Steam store page and brought in both Quantum Anomaly and Amber's Arcade to do streaming on there. We were really worried that Steam chat, maybe this is going to be like a gross, horrible thing. Who knows? But it turned out to be very nice. And so we had a bunch of moderators lined up to,
we brought in a couple of our QA testers to guarantee we'd have moderators there. And then it turned out it was
just fun.
It was all fun.
So it was a very smooth. The process was very smooth this time around, and we did a few things a little bit differently than in years past. One, of course, is just the general DevOps thing, but a big one was a couple of days before launch, we went through and looked at recently launched Game Maker games in their forums for basically searching for their section where it's like, here's the common issues people have with, like, technically with the game. And then just straight up took all of it.
Yeah.
So if it was like, oh, you get a black screen. Oh, the like controller input doesn't work. Whatever else. These are usually Game Maker related issues rather than your game related. And so we just took those and kind of compiled them ahead of time. And I think that helped a bunch to already have that knowledge bank in place to stop the usual problem, which is, oh, we're getting these reports of people like this Windows 7 thing, which we couldn't foresee. And being able to kind of make sure we get to focus on the game itself as opposed to some of these crashes and things like that.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was very smooth.
Yeah. So that was fantastic.
Mm-hmm.
And then how about, like, what did we expect in terms of audience, in terms of player participation or coverage, and how did it go? So let's talk about that.
Yeah. So this was the interesting one, I think, because everyone's told to treat your early access launch like a full launch, right? Which means you do literally everything you would normally do.
Yeah. So you're reaching out to press, you're reaching out to YouTubers, Twitch streamers, you're
buying ads if you can.
Buying ads if possible. Yeah.
And so we were doing all these things. And of course, we've only ever launched games. So our expectation was, okay, probably this is just going to be like a muted version of a full launch.
Yeah. So we get like the launch day spike and then it'll kind of fall down and then we'll get like a slow growth, hopefully, or whatever.
Exactly. But what we saw instead was mainly that most of the energy then that people bring to the game is just one of, or when they, for example, arrive on the store page from somewhere, is mainly one of interest, but waiting. So this is what actually happens with early access titles, right? Is most people, they're like, this looks cool, but it's in early access.
Well, people say like, this looks cool, but it's not out yet.
Yes.
Yeah. So I'm going to just wish list it and just keep an eye on it. Right.
And so we did get a very healthy amount of wish lists as far as, like our own personal metrics. And then as far as like just total player base, we got enough people that the communities, like you can see them all pouring into the Discord over the course of the few days. And it's not so much that that we're worried about it basically exploding our backend web architecture.
Yeah, well, and it's also
nice.
and it's also not so much that, because we designed the system around the idea that there'd be a huge number of people like publishing levels all the time and playing stuff all the time. And so while we now have enough players that we can test out some of the theories that we had that determine what numbers we used for thresholds and stuff. We don't have yet the kinds of numbers that we need to find out like where are the other holes that are still.
Yeah, well, I think this kind of puts us into one thing I hadn't anticipated that actually I think is really good. Is so essentially what early access allows us to do now is, because of that tendency that people have to see the game, see an early access, be like, this looks good, but I'm gonna just wait. Then what that means is it sets us up really good for a launch later, because the longer we kind of sit here in early access, the more people come across it, the more wish lists you get, and then when you do your full launch, you get like a second pass at getting that exposure. But in early access, actually, your game is suppressed by a lot of the algorithms and stuff. So when you do your full launch, you get like the full visibility plus all of the wish lists and everything else. But during this time, we now get to do kind of this like slow burn growth over time, which means that if we have issues that start to appear with our server, in terms of load and stuff like that, as the population grows, then we should be able to deal with them in a more sort of thoughtful way instead of like panicking.
Less of a crisis management.
Things. Now, we still might do that to ourselves if we do some kind of like a free weekend at some point down the road or whatever. But we haven't really figured out if we want to do that. But so we could still just burn everything to the ground in terms of our web infrastructure.
Yeah, well, it is interesting launching a game that requires some like intense web component, right? Is that question is always sort of just unanswered. No matter what kind of tests you do, even if you do sort of full scale automated, basically DDoS attack testing, right? Because what actual players do is going to be different, and of course they're all using real devices. And if you're sort of simulating it, you're going to be using bots that just talk directly to the server, not through a browser and that sort of thing. So you really just can't know what's going to happen until you get all those people in there. And so if you're going to go from the game basically not being launched, right, and working for a few hundred people, maybe or something like that,
to like 10,000 concurrent,
to like 10,000 concurrent, you just have no idea what's going to happen. And the problem there, of course, is that if it doesn't work, there's now a lot of people that are like waiting for that to work, and so you're under enormous time pressure to diagnose what's going on and then fix it to make all of that.
And I mean, web tech is not easy, and I mean, I play a lot of MMOs, and never a week goes by when you don't see the Twitter account of some like of the game studio or whatever being like, hey, everybody, our authentication servers are down in this region for the next 2 hours. Something's going wrong. We're trying to figure it out. Right?
I mean, even Steam's backend stuff went down actually in like 2 different times this weekend. And so
a couple hours at a time.
Yes, we weren't able to see any of the data.
Yeah, that was a panic moment. We're looking at the back end and we're like,
all of a sudden our sales went down to literally zero.
We haven't made a single sale in 2 hours. Like, and then all of a sudden it just like retroactively filled back. And we're like, oh, thank God.
It freaked me out.
At that point, you would expect there to be something. So at that point, it's like something has gone horribly wrong, or we just are blind.
Yeah, it's much easier to go from 1 to many than from 0 to 1 is sort of the rule, right? And so if you're looking at your sales and there's literally 0, that is a strong signal from the market.
That's trouble.
You fucked it up really bad. So it's really interesting. And I think it was great watching the community like, I think our Discord server is just lovely. I'm just going to be honest.
Oh yeah,
like,
it's fucking great.
And it was great. And we did have there was some like an intense discussion about the naming system, which of course we've talked about in the podcast. We knew some people.
And we've already had a few of those in the past with other people.
Exactly. So we knew some people were going to get a little salty about it, but it was really interesting to see because we try to have actual sort of discourse in the server. And so that means there's sort of these cultural rules that become enforced by the whole community, which is just like, you just be nice when you're talking to people. And then you come to these discussions with sort of an open mind. And so it was really fun, even having that same discussion as we've had before with people about the naming system or about some of these other systems in the game, like the fact that the campaign is hard and you have to beat it in order to unlock content. Those are the two things we knew people were going to be likely upset about.
Yep.
And they were. But it didn't have
not very many, though.
Not very many. And it also didn't have this I think because it was taking place in our Discord channel, it has a different sort of context than if it was just like a random place on the internet.
Yeah, it's more about just like feedback and kind of questions than it is about, I'm super angry about this, go change it.
Yeah, I will say the game currently has like a 95% rating.
Something like
or
that.
7. I don't know. It's very positive.
It was 97 last I checked, but I think that was biased because of our early group of
Right.
fans coming in,
So
And on that note, if you do, listeners, buy the game,
Mm-hmm.
Please go also rate it.
Yeah, give it the old thumbs up because basically Steam needs to know that it's good before it starts putting in a lot of stuff. That's kind of the rule.
Yeah.
which is kind of it's a circular problem. It's hard to like get out of the cycle, but once you're out, then you're in the algorithms and you're good. Right?
Well, let's talk a little bit about like press and influencer attention on this thing.
Yeah, because that we got basically 0 of.
Yes.
Which, and that, to me, that's as of today.
Keep in mind,
To me, that was
Monday
the
we're
biggest surprise.
Well, here's the thing though. Everything we saw was basically saying people don't really cover early access games.
Yeah.
Like they don't really respond to key, like if you send them keys, if they're YouTubers, if they're Twitch streamers, if it's a newly launching early access game, don't expect anybody to notice.
And
And we were like, they'll notice.
Well, I
team said this
assumed
too.
most people wouldn't, but I also figured
Somebody would.
somebody.
No, yeah, but
There are so many of them.
it was right. It was. We should have listened.
Yeah, there was one good YouTuber video that came out the day before launch.
Yeah.
A smaller YouTuber, which was incrable and
It was
very
a blast.
fun.
And they
Yeah.
played co-op, which was
they had
hilarious.
so much fun, and you could tell that they were just like loving it. But yeah, we basically got like none, and this was the surprising, horrifying thing, at least like for me personally, because I was like, shit.
Yeah, also for me, the rest I could just kind of like explain, like, okay, I get it, whatever. But given that because the problem with this game, which was also confirmed by our Steam rep, when we were asking like, is this going fine? Was just that people don't know this game exists. People don't know about it.
And again, that's also a circular
problem
because
because
people don't know it exists. They're like, why didn't I know this exists? Is
Right.
it because it's bad? I guess it's bad.
And even in like, because there were a solid handful of people who would stream it over the weekend, on Twitch in particular, and none of them were huge streamers of any sort. But one of the questions I saw, and a lot of it was like our own community just like chatting in the same place, right? But one of the ones that I saw that was somebody from outside of our community who was basically streaming to people outside of our community, and there was only a handful of them. But the questions that the people were asking were like, where did this game come from? How come I haven't seen anything about it? It was like those kinds of questions. And yeah, I mean, that's basically, it's because we haven't had any of that coverage yet. That people don't know that this game exists.
Well, yeah. So
Clawing your way from the bottom is very difficult.
Yeah. Well, this puts us into a, in my opinion, actually like a good position in the sense that we just get to slowly win people over.
Yeah.
Like little bits.
We got this
at a
kind of
time.
hidden gem sitting.
Yeah.
here,
And so, because so far what I've seen is, I mean, I know this kind of sounds like sort of tooting your own horn, but hey, we made a cool game. So I'm just going to say it. People who have played the game, who didn't know about it or whatever, I'm watching them on Twitch streams, on YouTube or whatever, and every time they're just like, "This is great! Like, I can't believe how good this is."
Yeah, I mean, one of the highlights from the weekend was last night, Sunday night. There's a tweet that came out from Tom Marks, who's the review editor at IGN, who basically just said, "Holy shit! I just played through the entire campaign."
He didn't just play through; he 100%ed it.
Yeah.
He found all the secrets.
Yeah,
everything.
He said like, I'm like legit addicted to this thing, and I played it all weekend. And then here's my 2 levels I built, recreating the entire first level of Donkey Kong. Go play my levels.
Yeah, he made a 1-to-1 recreation of those levels. It was like Blaster
Canyon,
Barrel
Canyon,
Blaster Canyon. Yeah,
and yeah, I mean, like the response from the player base has been phenomenal. Where like, it is clearly a very good thing. It is, I think, heads and tails above even our design capabilities with something like Crashlands. And so that's been just phenomenal to see.
Yeah.
And it's one of those things where it's it allows us to make decisions, I think, a little more confidently going forward too. When we say, okay, yeah, the campaign is challenging. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Yes. Is it okay that we're doing some of the, like how we're doing some of the share code stuff, how we're doing all these things? Is this all working? And the answer is yes. And certainly there's a bunch of stuff that we found that we're going to be tuning up. But my favorite streamer to watch is actually, there's a guy named Mighty Mike, who's a German streamer, who's super fun to watch. And then his first day of streaming, the title of his stream was Mario Maker clone, essentially.
Yeah, I think he just stumbled across the game on Steam and picked it up.
Yeah, I don't know if he got it, or I don't know if our PR team sent him a key. I don't know. And then the next day it was something like much more than a Mario Maker clone. Yeah. And so, you just see that winning people over sort of thing happening.
Yeah. And I think then as people are going through the campaign, they keep every couple of levels, we got some new mechanic. And as they go through the campaign, I could just see people's minds getting blown as they go through. They're just like, what? There's so many things in this game, and of course, we don't even have everything. Like, we've developed a lot of content, and not all of it is ready for release yet. But it's kind of like waiting in the wings. So we don't even have everything out yet that we've already started. So the game is just going to keep getting better, keep getting bigger. And so I'm a true believer in the power of our community around the game to continually spread the word and bring people in, and it'll go.
Yeah. Well, I think this week will also prove out some things too, because I think there's not as much urgency around an early access launch, especially an indie one, as there is around the full launch of anything.
You mean in terms of press coverage?
Yeah. And so I'm curious this week to see. Of course, we're recording this on Monday, so who knows? But I'm curious to see if there's going to be any follow-on coverage for the rest of this week. And I still hope that there is, because as you said, so as nice as it is that we do have this good cohort of people in there, and the energy is really great and the game's really good. I certainly wouldn't have minded getting some damn YouTube coverage.
Well, I think
we some good broadcasts.
The articles and stuff like that. That's really, it's all about that stamp of approval. Where if you look up, Levelhead, and there's 20 recent articles about cool stuff going on in the game, then you're like, oh shit, yeah. If you look it up and there's no articles, you're like,
and that's also why we keep on pushing. And then we even hop in the Discord, and if we see people having a good time, we're like, hey, make sure you go review the game, because that's also that stamp where it's like, if you see that a game in early access already has 100 positive reviews, for example, and is overwhelmingly positive, it just starts lowering that barrier again to actually trying it out.
Yeah, so, people are risk averse, and that's they're right to be.
Absolutely.
I think we've all been burned by buggy or broken early access games in various ways, and we are at the top price tier for indie titles. We could
the higher place could be $25 or $30, and that's usually start creeping into being a 3D game.
Yeah,
at a minimum there.
Yeah, that extra D is $5 whole.
Yeah,
so,
which is comical.
So what that means though is, so if we sell it for $25 or $30, then we'd have to make it 3D. So we'll just do that.
Yeah.
So
just check the 3D.
We'll
box.
There's a little 3D box you can check.
It's right next to the make online
one of
box.
One of the questions that we've gotten a few times, which I think is kind of an interesting one, is people asking if they can run the game in 4K, which is, I think it's interesting how people don't quite connect the dots of what is happening sort of functionally in a 2D game versus a 3D game. Because in a 3D game, you have this camera that's rendering the edges of polygons and stuff like that. And so you can scale it down to 640 by 480 or up to 4K or whatever, and you just get to have more pixels, right? Because your
textures don't get to have more pixels.
Your textures stay the same, but what you're seeing on screen, you just get to have more, right?
Yeah.
But in a 2D game, it's actually made out of pre-made pictures.
It's only textures.
Yeah. So if you see an image on the internet that's a certain size, and you're like, I want this in 4K, it's well, you can't, because that's just what it is. Just what it is now, right? And so everything in a 2D game is that, of course. And so we have gotten that question a few times, which I think is kind of, I just always explain it oh yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
And
the answer is yes, you can play it in 4K.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
It's just is the short answer.
You're not going to get more pixels, but it will be bigger. Yeah. So, okay. So the game is out.
I have played it on my 4K TV, and it looks good.
It does. So. So going forward, we're going to be focusing on trying to get basically a patch out a week.
Mm-hmm.
So I shouldn't say trying, because we actually are patching sort of daily or multiple times per day, but we're not going to be deploying things out.
We'll be trying to release stuff on Wednesdays, essentially. The idea.
Yeah, that's the plan for now. If that turns out to be a weird timing,
that's the plan for at least for this week.
At least for this
As
Wednesday.
in when this podcast, actually, and part of it too is we wanted to kind of pair it with the podcast episode timeline, because that way, if there was something interesting in the patch notes, we could get a little dive into it on the podcast.
Yes, and one of the things I'm excited, actually, two of the things I'm excited about going forward for this thing. Actually, no, wait, three things. One, we got a big update on the scoreboard at the end. So now you can see actual leaderboard and you can see the top 3 places, which is great. Because previously all you could see was the number 1 person, which meant that it was harder to taunt people. You know what I mean? Like if you unseat somebody, their name is just gone.
You can't even remember who it was.
Yeah. But now you can see their name right below your name. And then when you screenshot it and send it to them, now they know. Like they know what you've done and how much you beat them by.
It also has been really interesting because you play those levels where some speedrunner just crushes it, because we got a handful of speedrunners who are really, really good. And my thought the whole time was always like, okay, well, I could probably still get like 2nd or 3rd place. But once I saw the leaderboards in there, then even the people who aren't completely crushing it are still fucking crushing it. And so I was playing through a whole bunch of community levels last night, and every level I played through, I get to the end and I'd be like, a minute, 3 minutes, 8 minutes even, and I'd be like, okay, I can see how I could now that I know it, and if I figure it all out, I could shave this way down, and then I go look at the leaderboard, and all 3 slots are just like 10 seconds, 30 seconds, 5 seconds.
Like,
I'm like, what the hell? How is that even
What's really
possible?
fun, we do have Retrophile TV has been doing sort of evening streams, and he's essentially the resident speedrunner now.
He's got like 100-something fastest times.
I've been watching this dude play. It's just unreal.
Yeah, it's awesome.
Well, it's crazy too, because like the more top scores, top times you have, the more exposed you are, right? Because
people start seeing you.
Because now you've got so many records that the chance of any one of them being taken from you at any time is equivalent across all of them, which means any given day, like he after I think the first day or something, he logged back in and he had lost 10 just like right out of the gate, So, so I think the higher you go on that list, the more you have to like fight to defend your title. Yeah. Which I'm really excited to see as more and more levels get made, as more people get in, more speedrunners get into the community, just how vicious the battles are going to be.
Yeah, it's going to be intense.
There was another interesting. So the other couple things, Bernie Whirlers, which is our like fire. It's like whippy fire thing. You can now have up to 4, which is going to like four fire chains on a single thing.
We should do that thing where the center one you can swap out with a piece of
just
fire.
Another
also.
fire, just fire, all just
fire everywhere.
Like turtles all the way down.
Yep.
And then also we got a little Boombox update. So previously Boombox is a little like they make sounds in the game. So people have made music and stuff out of them. And so I've updated their little control panel so that they're a lot easier to use. But the cool thing about it is now it's like a little slider you can use to pick the note, and it plays notes as you slide it around.
Fun.
And I accidentally just spent like 20 minutes just like whipping the slider around, like making stupid noises. So that's going to be super cool. I had one other thing I wanted to talk about, which is this interesting question about people publish levels and then they discover that there's a flaw in their level.
Yeah.
So what do we think about this?
You want to have a live design discussion about it?
Well, no, I think we're all on the same page. I just think it's an interesting sort of conundrum from the perspective of building levels and publishing them, having other people play them, and like how that interacts with the ecosystem of the entire community. Because we've had a lot of internal design discussions about, should people be able to pull their level down? Should people be able to delete their level? Should they be able to edit it and republish it? And we've landed firmly on the side of no. Like, you put your level out there and it is what it is. Because there's been discussions of people who built a level with an intended route that somebody's supposed to take, and then a speedrunner comes in there and they just poke around for like 10 minutes trying to find,
and they know how to do every little trick in the fucking book.
So they discover some trick that like lets them shave 20 seconds off by skipping this one part of the level that you weren't supposed to be able to skip. And the creators of the levels will often say like, well, my level is ruined now. Like that's the framing that kind of keeps coming in. And I'm wondering, like, what's your take on this?
Well, I have two minds about it. One, I think the reality is all the campaign levels, for example, do get play tested. And I do edit the shit out of them. And in fact, I'm still editing them to this day. So
speedrunners still find their way around everything.
Oh, yeah.
But also notably, we have to do that because they gate content behind them.
They do.
So they do have to be beatable and all that.
And so I'm basically two minds about it, which is the first one is I do think it would be good for people to be able to edit their levels. I do, because I think when you put a level out there, and not because of speedrunners, actually, I think if that's the reason why you want to edit your level, I think you're doing it wrong, because like they're just going to get it. Like the thing I've learned from watching people play the campaign, even people who aren't speedrunners, is that people
cannot be constrained.
They cannot be contained.
People
They're
are chaos monkeys.
It's insane. And some of the power-ups that you give them, people just do stuff where you're like, quick, just get down from there. Get off that. And so I even got, I got a report from Rescue 2 who said, hey, I found there's this divot in the top of this level, on the final level of the game. You can scale up on top of it and run across the top once you have one of the power-ups. He's like, I found this hole, but there's nothing in it. And I'm like, I didn't mean to put a hole there. It's just like there's just a block missing.
You weren't supposed to be up.
You were supposed to get down from there. And so like I feel like that's, it's hard for me actually to watch even streamers play, because of course the whole time you're sort of screaming inside your own mind and you're like,
I meant you to do this. Go
get
do
down
this
from
thing.
there. Yeah. And so I think there's an important note there, which is that as a designer of a level, which of course our players become in this case, you absolutely cannot
put people in a box,
contain people as much as you would like to have them do exactly what the experience is, especially the first time. So there's that. And I think the reality though is that there are plenty of ways in which you'll build a level and then realize that you did fuck it up in a very real way, where you're like, oh, what you were supposed to see to do here was this, or I really don't want that to be sort of the normal route that people take. And I think that's super legit. And so I think I'm basically of two minds about it, which is I would like people to be able to edit their levels, but
there has to be
all the consequences are really problematic.
There's some really interesting consequences. So you have to answer this question. This is one of those door problems, right? This is a classic design problem, which just says, okay, so if people can edit their levels, what does this mean? Because there are leaderboards attached to every single level.
So that invalidates leaderboards.
Right. Okay.
So you would take away people's shoes and crowns.
It also invalidates all the stats, because the stats only make sense. The stats are designed for us to figure out how a level is, right?
So now now we don't know anything about your level anymore.
So to purge all your stats, purge the leaderboard. So it also sucks for all the players who got on the leaderboard. So
the question is, do we prize more your ability to edit the level than we do for people to count on their shoes and ribbons being reflected in their scores? So there's that. And then when it comes to getting the level back down, you have an exploit problem, which is if I really just want to get like a ton of exposure on myself and on my levels, probably the best thing I could do is take a level that I know I made that's really good, publish it, put it to the top of the market department, let it accumulate a bunch of plays, and then like maybe get some subscribers out of the deal. And then once it gets put into the tower, because we don't currently have surfacing mechanisms aside from just going into the tower to play levels, pull it back down, republish it again, bump it to the top of the marketing department, because that tends to be where people hang out to play levels, right?
Yep.
So, okay, now we have an exploit problem. How do we make sure that people don't do that? And as much as you can
say, this is a gaming the system problem for the creator, because now it feels like that's what you should be doing.
Yes. Yeah.
And it sucks for the players because
they see the same content.
They keep seeing the same things over and over again, and they can't count on things being persistent. Like they'll play a level, they'll favorite it, and then all of a sudden it's literally
gone.
A
different, or it's just different,
or it's different now. Yeah.
So
if you can, because sure, we want to solve the problem being able to you make a broken level and you publish it, right? But also, most of what's going to happen is that people are going to make a completely fine level and then go make changes to it.
Yes.
Because they want this to be a little bit different or whatever. And so now all of a sudden, the levels, basically nothing becomes trustworthy anymore. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Unless you just depublish a level completely, but now nothing is permanent anymore. Yeah.
So, but that might be fine, but it's tremendous consequence on the whole system.
I think this kind of comes back to our inventory management plan for Crashlands. Because in Crashlands, we basically had... Originally, we did have inventory, and you could open up your bag and you could see things. And as we developed the game and added more items to the game, we kept having to come up with ways to sort of make this system not suck, right? Mm-hmm. So we kept expanding the inventory. Then we added chests that you could build, and then we had an auto sort mechanism. And then you could name your chests, and then you could link chests together. We just had to keep doing things to try to make this not suck. And what we found was that when we were playing the game, we would spend a third of our time just looking at an inventory screen instead of running around in the world, fighting monsters and doing engaging things, right? And so I think the concern that we always have with if we let people just continuously unpublish their level, edit it, republish it, unpublish it, edit it, republish, then the incentives are really weird for that, because it might be the optimal strategy to, like you said, get your level seen a lot or something. And so then you end up in a scenario where instead of building new and interesting things,
you're constantly side grading.
You're just constantly kind of wiggling things around.
So, but there's an interesting note here, which is the request has been for the ability to edit levels, right? That's the player
But
request.
the solution could be something else.
The solution could be something else entirely. Because,
letting people play test your level.
Yes, because the problem is not the fact that the level is published and then you want to edit. The problem is that you cannot get it play tested if you don't have any.
That you missed something.
You actually can't play test it if you have no other human in your vicinity, which like a lot of people play games like, just by themselves, or this is a high skill game. Like you can't just have, maybe your daughter is like interested, but you can't have her playtest a level. Like I can't have certain people in the office playtest levels at the end of the campaign because it doesn't show me literally anything until that person has gone through the entire campaign. Right. Yeah. And so that's probably the actual problem. And that's what we need to solve in an interesting, clever way. So, what if there's an opportunity for...
Well, and we still haven't set up the synced part of the workshop yet.
Exactly.
Right. And so once levels are synced, that means that they are on the internet. Or once you're in progress levels, which means that in principle,
you can pass it off.
You could let somebody, download it and give it a try. And that creates, this new set of design questions like, do we make a QA department like the marketing department where you can just like go play test levels?
But then of course,
now takes away from the marketing department. But
also, how would you know what people were doing in your level?
Yeah, exactly.
You know what I mean?
Because feedback.
To me, actually, I think what it should do is actually reinforce and pull on the community in a really big way, which is one of the things that you have to do. So if in order for a community to function, you have to start building these relationships, right, between other players. And on top of that, there has to be some risk involved. So this is my favorite thing actually about seeing people share their levels currently in the Discord is that you got to keep in mind, like people spend time on these things. People spend like 5 to 8 hours building a level, and then they'll say, "Hey, go play my level, go check it out." And it's super exciting. And also, you can imagine how horrible it would be if you say, like, "Hey, go play this level," and people are like, "This is garbage."
Yep.
And so, and we've largely limited the ways people can say that, aside from literally saying it to someone's face in a Discord chat.
Yeah.
And so, the thing I'm really excited about is the opportunity to actually provide a mechanism by which, for example, like this collaborative idea, where you say, I have this level, I need someone to play test it. If the function exists for you to be able to like send a level to someone.
Yeah.
Privately,
so you still just use a share code.
You still use a share code, but you have to establish that relationship with the person actually outside the context of the game.
Right. So instead of you just sort of like anonymously dumping your level into a play test,
you say, hey, and then you'll have people rise up in the community who are known for just being good at providing some design critique, right?
Yep.
And say, hey, maybe you should try this, whatever else. And so I think that's actually what I'm most excited about is providing just the tool, but not any of the other engagement stuff inside of the game, and then allowing the community to take that and actually become more robust because of that. Because if you think about how risky of a fun or a relationship that could be, it's like, okay, so I'm going to send this to someone to play test. Now they're going to give me feedback, and that person gets to be part of the journey at that level then at that point.
Yep.
As opposed to just a bystander, right?
Yeah.
And then we have the further questions, which is what about like actual collaborative levels, where I could build part of it and then send it over to Adam and be like, hey, you finished this.
Yeah. Well, because we could even have credits on a level, right? It's like if you send it off to be QA'd by somebody, if we actually store that fact somehow, then we can embed it in the level so that now when it gets played by somebody else, like once you beat it, it's like special thanks to this person for QA.
Well, it could even be an aggregated stat on your profile. It could show how many levels you have play tested for other people or something.
So you talk about a much more interesting solution to the same problem, right? Which is the reality,
and one that gets deep, that gets closer to the core of the problem, which is if somebody. As soon as you hand your level to other people, you immediately see the flaws in it.
Yep.
This
happens to me too.
This is for what I love about this is our players get to experience just like at the tip of the iceberg of what it feels like to be a game developer every day. Of like you spend. So for us, it's like we spend 2 years building a thing. We hand it to somebody and they're like, "This is garbage." We're like, "Fuck."
Yeah.
But in Levelhead, you get a microcosm of that. You spend 4 hours building a level and then you hand it to somebody and they're like, "I'm just going to skip this." And they're just going like, "Shit."
It's one of the things too, especially coming from the side of being a developer and then going into the marketing department. Like just like last night, looking at people's levels, I wanted to give everybody's level some time. I wanted to be like. Because I felt so bad every time I saw a level with like a small number of plays or something. I was like, I got to just get in here.
I feel bad for you, guy. Little buddy.
Because I get it, So then I would go in. Of course, these are always the very hard levels that have these tiny numbers of plays.
And you're like, oh.
Yeah. So I just give it a few tries. I'm like, okay, fine.
I will say, I think I already know what my primary point of feedback would ever be, which is put more checkpoints.
Yes.
For the love of God. Like the thing that makes someone exit your level. 100%. And I saw this in the campaign too. The campaign used to have limited life checkpoints all over the place. It now has none, aside from in like, I think 2 circumstances. They are always infinite and they always follow the same thing, which is you reward players for having conquered some ridiculously hard thing. Yeah. And then you also stop them from having to do some mundane shit. Those are your 2 things. So if you realize you just put that in your level, put a checkpoint down, because I played a bunch yesterday. And one of them in particular was so fun. The opening was insane. And I beat the opening. It took me like 5 minutes
Which
just to
one
get
this? Was this the one with the cannons underneath?
This one had smart cannons, and then basically you had to use the waylay to charge jump onto a bunch of clouds while dodging fireballs.
Nice, awesome.
Amazing. And so I go through this whole thing, and it was like really intense and fun, and I nailed it on like the 6th try, and it felt incredible. And then I hop up, and there's no checkpoint. And I was like, well, shit.
And then you got killed.
And then there's like this tremendous spike thing that I had to get through. And I was like, this is not happening. So I quit because I was like, I'm not here for this.
Well, I saw usually what happened in the Discord is somebody would because this point of feedback always comes back to people in the Discord as well. Somebody's like, man, that level was pretty good, but like it was kind of frustrating because there was no checkpoints or whatever. Mm-hmm. And the creator always says something like, well, I didn't have a hard time with it. It's like, again, it's just like being a game developer, right? Like once you've engaged with the level, you've placed every block, you've placed every projectile, every hazard.
You've play tested it 1,000 times.
Yeah. So you've spent so much time on it. And because it's your level, then you're more forgiving about those things because you're not going to make yourself frustrated.
Well, and going back to the whole,
you're thinking about it from a different perspective.
Going back to the whole playtesting thing. This is why we actually bring in people. So when Sam's making a new level for the campaign, he waits until it's done and then brings on somebody to play it. Who ideally doesn't even play games that much. Mm-hmm. Like that's and we even put out a call in our.
We want somebody who
office complex.
That was in particular for the first series.
Yeah, for the first levels. Right?
Yeah, we want people who inherently actually are more prone to getting frustrated. Yeah, like people who aren't really that into games.
Yeah, we had talked about in the past. I mean, we should look back into this of having it so that once you completed your level and are like ready to publish it, we would actually give you some auto-generated feedback, right? So like. If the level takes X amount of time before like you get to the end and there are no checkpoints, for example, then we'll be like, we'll just put up a little suggestion like, oh yeah, we noticed you don't have any checkpoints. Like players typically like these a lot more.
Levels tend to get played more if there's a checkpoint in it.
Yes.
That's a fact.
Yeah.
I don't even look at the stats.
But this is a perfect thing. Actually, and we can even say like, it could be as simple as if you don't have a checkpoint in your level,
it's less likely to be played.
We just put that message up there. And so we can actually have like a little, sort of like how, so we have this thing called Glock apps, which is how we test our emails to make sure they're not going into spam. And what they do is they just basically have a little icon of like, here's how many things might be wrong with your message, right? Yeah. And then you can go and you can read through the list. So we can just have a running tally of that. We just have like a little number, kind of like an inbox of just like all the things that might make your game or your level that you're making less played by other people. And that's the focus, right? We don't say whether it's good or bad.
So,
we just say
you
like,
basically have like a little, you could like run a little health check.
Exactly.
And it'd be like, here's some things that might be good. Yeah.
Yep. Mm-hmm. And if the game requires like, because if we can also track stuff like how many package jumps a player is doing or how many like just anything that we can auto detect, we're going to just have that little tally and be like, most players like really suck at this, right? Mm-hmm. So make sure you actually tag it with like the tag that like corresponds to this so the right people play it and whatever.
Sounds like we need some machine learning.
We need some machine learning in there.
Mm-hmm. Someone call Google.
No,
I don't think that. We've been trying to do that for a while now.
There are no people over there, only machines.
It's only the machine learning is doing its job too good.
I'm super excited about that idea for like a testing thing.
Yeah,
so I'm pushing on that for the next couple of weeks and figure out how soon we can get
that. Yeah. So I do think that it's likely that especially in this first month into early access, we're going to be focusing really hard on those kinds of features of trying to find better social features like the scoreboard update and stuff like that.
These are more systemic changes than they are content changes. So something to kind of be aware of. It's like we might be adding a few things to the game, but most of our energy is going to be going to this sort of stuff.
On making it easier to share things, easier to find people, easier to find levels,
but the fact is there's already plenty of stuff. And I saw some of the streamers talking about it as they were like making levels and stuff. And they just said, if you only had the first few elements of the game, you could still make infinite, really interesting levels, which is true.
Yep. Yeah.
So the game, people will always have the feeling once they have all the content that there's not enough because that's just how, it's the whole hedonic treadmill thing. Mm-hmm. But the fact is that is enough, and we're still going to put more in because like that's our job, right?
Because it's not enough.
Because it's not enough. But the focus actually needs to be on the global play experience, less so on the details of like adding, individual elements. So each one of which adds a whole bunch of new gameplay opportunities, definitely. But the bigger thing is if you can have people play test your level, if you can collaborate on levels in some way, if you can do this other kind of stuff, that opens up an entirely new social experience for this game,
and which is
far more
game
valuable
at its heart.
It is, yeah.
So maybe we should, after this podcast, we should have a little conversation about what this means.
Yeah, it was the case. Every time,
I think we go now.
Yeah, but every time I played somebody's level in the in the marketing department. I wanted, like, if I really liked it, I wanted to go into the Discord and be like, hey, I loved your level, right?
Yeah.
But of course, like, there's a disconnect there, and I think and still a substantial fraction of those people are not in our Discord. Even if they are, they might not have their username in there or whatever, right? And so it was this kind of this like, there was this hole there where I wanted, because all I could do is give them exposure bucks, right? But that was it. And which actually maybe we do need a
you can have a reactions wheel.
We might need some kind of a reaction system.
Kind of like Facebook.
A reactions wheel, you just spin it and like you just get a random reaction.
Even if it's just, but even if we just take the whole like Reddit gold perspective, you know, where it's just like you earn on top of exposure bucks, you also earn these like
diamonds,
these like medallions. they don't do anything, right? They just so they don't actually change the rank. They don't do anything. It's just like you have a limited set of them, and you can like give them to somebody to basically say like, I see you and what you did was awesome, right?
Well, we do have favorites, which people are using.
That's true.
Using for that metric. So
yeah, I guess I don't really use the favorites because it's not that I want to play the level again, right? To me, like, that's what a favorite is. I just want to be able to say, because there's infinite levels. Like I actually don't favorite anything because
it's fine.
There's infinite levels.
Yeah. You don't need to revisit it.
I don't need to revisit it.
A couple that I thought really clever.
Yeah.
But no, it's true. Yeah. So we want to refine all of this stuff. And this is exactly what the early access was for, was to just say,
figure out what
are we
matters.
missing? Yeah, what are we missing, and what would make this go from being something that people play and love to being something that people literally play as a hobby.
Yep.
And people are like, what game are you playing? Like Levelhead?
They're like, still, it's been 4 years. And you're like, I still haven't run out of things to do.
It's infinite. And I'm
Here's
having a good
4
time.
more.
Yeah.
Yeah. It needs to be like Minecraft. You know, you just play it forever.
Keep
and
building
then
stuff.
Microsoft offers us $1 billion, but we'll say no.
Mm-hmm. We saw what happened. I guess they're doing fine.
Yeah, it's fine, actually.
Yeah.
Maybe
Actually,
we'll say yes.
we may say yes. $1 billion
Look,
is a lot of dollars.
that's a lot. That's a lot
of dollars.
You can get a lot of LED strips.
Yeah.
So
You get a lot of $9 wallets for that
and
stuff.
I'll say, I don't know about you guys, but that is what I'm here for.
The wallets or the LED
the
strips?
LED strips.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If we could just get paid in LED strips, that'd be perfect.
That'd be awesome.
Yeah. So we could probably negotiate that.
Yeah.
On some level.
With
I'm sure
somebody.
they'd be very happy with that.
Yeah. It'd be like 3 LED strips. That's
For all of your intellectual property.
$28.
Are you a monk? What is this?
You could just order them. Anyway.
You're an LED monk.
Let's get on to some questions. These questions come from our listeners over at podcast.bscotch.net. If you'd like to get your questions onto a future episode, you can go there and ask, and you can also vote up other people's questions to push them to the top. So let's get started. First question comes from Retro Banana Man NL. In episode 196, you said that seasoning makes food good. So what are your opinions about eating insects when prepared properly?
Probably they're good.
They're good.
Adam ate a scorpion.
Yeah, it was good.
That's not an insect, though, so it doesn't count.
That's is it an arachnid?
It's a land demon.
It's a land demon.
It's like a lobster.
A land.
Right.
A,
I think it's a little bit.
lambster.
I think it's a little bit weird that people are totally cool with eating shrimp and lobster and crab
And not bugs.
and not bugs.
Yeah,
They're like,
crustaceans are just water bugs.
yeah. People eat they look at a bug and like, no, that needs to be way bigger and underwater. And then I'm
Yeah, well, that's the weird part too, because like for me, if I'm eating bugs, if they're really small, I'm like, so I had like chocolate covered ants and whatever. Like if it's really small, if it's kind of occluded, then I'm like, oh, I don't give a fuck. This is fine. It's just food, right? But the bigger it gets, the more gross that
So there's
seems.
an
Even though,
uncanny
but your
valley,
point though is that when you go underwater though, the bigger it gets, the better.
Yeah.
Because you want like a 10-pound lobster,
king crab
right?
with
king
legs 7 miles long.
Yeah, we just take a crab, which looks like a water demon,
giant water
right?
spider, yeah.
And it's just a giant, hideous spider with covered in armored plates with these giant creepy ass legs with spikes on them, right? And we just
And
like
its
grab
mouth-
that leg, we just rip it off, and then we start like crunching it open with these little tools, and like we're getting our hands in there and like sucking the meat out.
Listen.
like a bunch of barbarians.
a crab's mouth has arms.
Yeah,
I can't emphasize this enough.
I love looking. Their mouths are so fun because they're always just like
Their mouths are
they're so
covered in
handsome.
hands. Okay,
yeah.
that is if that's not fucking weird.
There's
don't know.
nothing
It's like
weirder than a
eating the
crab
predator.
face.
You watch
know?
me, there's like just like pulling stuff in with their little mouth hands.
Yeah. So it's all to say, like, I know in principle there's nothing even remotely more gross about a land insect than a sea, whatever these things are. A sea demon.
Sea demon.
But there's those food taboos and this is the thing about food taboos, right? Is that they're all bullshit things that you were inculcated with as a child growing up. And I've moved past a lot of them, but the bugs one I've only like just inched into. But the main problem is because there's nowhere you can just go eat bugs. Almost every food taboo, at least where we live, almost every food taboo there is, there's like, because there's a culture where that is not a taboo. If you're in a city that's multicultural enough, there's a restaurant where you can go eat that thing and it's fine. But bugs,
It's a familiarity problem.
Wait a minute.
They're just not available here.
I think I know what it is.
We need a food truck.
I think people
do need a bug
I think
truck.
it's not actually bugs. I think it's that people have a strong taboo against eating heads.
That's true.
That's
right.
right. Because crabs do not have identifiable
Crabs are
heads.
just like a weird disc shape. Right?
They got no neck, so they can't have a head. Do you have to have a neck to have a head?
No,
do frogs have heads then? Because frogs don't have necks.
yeah, but
That's just fair.
I think because like
You
when
can
you're
have a head
eating
without having a neck.
when you're
Okay.
eating an insect, you're eating it whole, and it clearly has a head like on there. You know what I mean?
But I can eat whole. I can eat whole like fish, like small fish, and I can eat. So I can eat whole.
Yeah, but
bunch
that's
of
not really.
That's not
people
common.
aren't super pumped about that.
Most people are like,
Yeah, but the thing is, like, what I'm saying is, I can do it, but I still have struggled with the insects, right? So I don't think it's just that. I think it's just like every taboo.
Must be part.
I think every taboo is just a taboo you have to get over. And I think there's probably going to be some connections. Like, heads on things. Like that's a
cannibalism. You just
Cannibalism.
need, the food truck with cannibalism stuff going on, and
now it's acceptable.
it's acceptable. It's
Yeah.
delicious.
It's just
like
all about.
It's just called people tacos. What would the bug truck be called? The exterminator?
It'd have to be
Maybe a pretty good one.
the bug truck?
exterminator.
Ooh, yeah, fuck yeah. Exterminate.
There you go.
All right. Next question comes from Cprice. Have you all read Lean Startup? If you haven't, it's a great book about using data to make informed product decisions in the startup space. Do you have any kind of data-driven design? If you do, what sort of data are you planning on looking at for Levelhead? Did you do any of this with Crashlands? Or if not, was there any data that you wish you would have captured or had earlier on in development?
The first answer is no, so we can just kind of knock that one aside.
Well,
the
we
second
actually
answer is
did
yes.
we used a thing called Flurry really early
Yep.
for Talify Quadrupus. And we had all these like analytics going on and stuff like that.
But every time we looked at it, we were like,
Like, now what?
I don't know what to do.
We,
with
got,
this.
Yeah.
we put events
means
all over the
nothing.
place so we could be like, how many people are completing this? How many people unlock this pet? But then
Because the next question is, well, why? Right? Because you can only
You can only
if you
say-
think that a thing is a problem. So first you have to ask, like, is this a problem?
Yeah.
And then the question is, okay, if it is, then why is this happening? And the data are never going to give you that answer.
Right.
And so you still have to come up with. So first, it's still on you to decide if there's even a problem, and that decision comes down to how people behave in real life versus how you think they behave. And
Which,
how,
for those of
how
you
disconnected that is.
now built levels and seen people do horrible things in them,
Yeah.
you know that you
People
have
are
no
not
idea.
predictable.
yeah, because
But they're gas
yeah,
buckets.
if all you had was numbers of like maybe like the speeds on your level or the number of plays or whatever, that once you actually see somebody doing weird shit in your level that you could never have imagined, there's no way you could have like reverse engineered just some numbers to get to that.
yeah.
You know,
Well, it's even stuff like we talked about in the past, how wacky open rates are for emails, right? Because you can take the same email, send to the same people, and you wait 4 hours and then send it instead of sending it when you were going to, and the open rate drops by a half. The same people still get it. Just went into the same inboxes.
it's just that it's lunchtime.
You just send it at a different time. It's still in their inbox, meaning they could at any moment go in there and see it.
But they will.
But they're not
They
going to
never
now
will.
because it came 4 hours later than the optimal time, right? So people behave very strangely, like not how you expect at all.
Nope.
And
So I think-
trying to guess at what that is by looking at numbers
It's hard.
is basically a fool's game.
So
for
I
the most
think
part.
we don't. I think there's been a lot of this data driven design stuff, and I think generally what you get. I saw this one funny one where someone they templated like 4 different art aesthetics basically for this game, and then they used Facebook ads to determine like which one of these art aesthetics had the best pickup on Facebook. Built the whole game out of it. The game failed, of course, because that's not relevant for like it's part of the puzzle, but it's never the whole thing. And so the issue I have with data generally, or with these data driven approaches, is that oftentimes people use the data
In place of good design,
in place of good design, or it narrows their thinking. Actually, is what
Yeah.
my issue. Where even this exactly what we just talked about with this whole like we've gotten a lot of this requests for editing levels. And we could just say, oh man, like people want to edit levels. We should do
that's
this.
a data point.
No.
Right.
No. Like this has so many externalities downstream for the game that are
Yeah,
probably
it'll
bad.
literally break the game.
Right.
Yeah.
So then the question is, what's the true problem? And is there a
Yeah.
because there's and this is how we always respond to player feedback generally is like people will request a thing, but we never look at just that. We always go like, why? You know, what is it about their experience that's causing them to request that? And because there's likely that because people tend to respond to what's in front of them, right?
Mhm.
So I think it was like the Henry Ford quote when he said like, if I listened to what people wanted, I would have just given them a faster horse.
Right.
Because people see horses, they're riding horses. People are riding seahorses.
It's crazy. It's a crazy world.
Yeah, and so that's
people are seeing ride horses,
right? And so those are the kinds of things that you're thinking about. Mm-hmm. You're not going to think about something you could never have imagined, just because by definition you can't imagine it. Right?
So that's sort of, I guess, our general take on data, which is you can be very careful with it.
Yeah, I think
narrow your focus.
Yeah, and I think that's exactly the problem. Is in order for a question to be answerable with data, it has to be a trivial question. I don't mean trivial like dumb. I mean trivial as in like very easy to solve.
Answer. Yeah. So for example, we do use so in Levelhead we do track basically aggregate analytics for campaign clear rates for just general playtime inside of different parts of the game. And that's just to see. The major reason is to see one is on the website if shit's breaking. And then on our side is just to see if there's any grander patterns as far as like, people don't tend to spend any time, for example, in the workshop, which would have been a huge problem. It's just make sure there's not any issues there. And then we have them inside of the campaign levels so we can track basically how many deaths, how many attempts, how many wins, and how many restarts in particular. But the truth is, if I just had the restart data, that'd probably be all I need. Or the quit, basically the exiting data, because all we're looking for there is to see if there's an accidental spike in difficulty that comes too early.
Yeah.
Right. So we do track a few of these things.
Yeah, because what you would see there is like a nice smooth progression of the bar graph of people moving from one level to the next, and then all of a sudden a big drop off.
And we did see this during the alpha for one of the early levels, and so changed that one quite a bit. But the interesting thing is when you when you pair all this stuff together, it starts making you ask and answer other questions that you didn't even know you had. So in the case of the campaign levels, there's one called Doom Dream, which is the first autocam level that players experience. And it's sort of the capstone level in the desert. It's very intense. And people have this combination reaction to it, which is they, of course, hate it and they love it.
It's a love-hate
relationship. Hard. Because once you beat it, you're like, yes.
Yes. But they get stuck. The people will tend to get stuck on it for like a little bit. And so the question is, what does it mean?
Does that mean we should change it, or is this the design?
Or is it design?
Right.
Because what people tend to do when they get stuck is they'll go bop around the workshop or go play other people's levels for a little bit. And
we want that.
Both of those I'm very happy with both of those. And so actually the campaign has to have this push and pull where it should challenge you at sometimes so much that you're like, I'm going to go do something else for a little bit and then come back.
Yeah. Or you'll get feedback of, the campaign has inconsistent difficulty, right? Like I'll play one level and it's super hard, and then I play the next level and it was a lot easier. And like, yes, that's part of the plan, right? Because if every level is just hard,
if it's like Super Meat Boy.
Yeah, then you're just like, I am exhausted. I need to go to bed. I can't do this anymore.
Yeah,
right?
Super Meat Boy is one of the most draining games I've ever played. And
it's just hard.
It's just hard.
2-hour chunks, basically.
Yeah, it's just progressively harder constantly until you get to the end.
Yeah, and so I think it's interesting because it's I don't know if there's like a word for it, but it's an observation that's framed as a problem, even though it's just an observation, right? So if somebody says like
an observation just frames a problem, there needs to be a word for that. There has to be something.
Because like if somebody says like the campaign has an inconsistent difficulty,
it's like miswanting. So it's like saying that kind of idea, right?
Yeah, but you're just expressing what you're seeing, but not actually explaining why it's
sort of like when people were really angry about the J and K keys, right? They were just they were just observing that we use J and K.
They're like, I don't like that,
and they don't like it.
Yeah,
but that's the end.
That's the end of that. Yeah. So anyway, point being, like, feedback is very weird and it's very hard to parse.
Yep.
And you always have to go. This is why one of our studio principles is always know why.
Yeah.
Because you always need to keep peeling back the layers. And it's also the case that people give feedback in terms of emotions.
Yep.
Right. Like
people have very good, you can always trust people's feelings. You can't trust
and their feelings are
else.
always valid because people are very good at feeling things and they're very good at expressing how they feel. Mm-hmm. But they don't often zoom out, 2, 3, 4 levels deeper and think about like, why do I feel this way? Is this a me thing or is this a systemic problem? Like
it's also not their job.
Yeah, exactly. That's our job.
Their job is to enjoy the product that we have made.
Yep.
And our job is to make that product as enjoyable as possible. But it is an interesting conflict. We talked about this a lot in the past, that there's the amount of miswanting is enormous, but it's actually miswanting is not quite the right word, because miswanting is just like wanting a thing that's clearly bad for you. But it's actually that you want a thing without realizing the far reaching consequences of getting it.
It's what you want is a solution to the immediate sort of issue in front of you
without worrying about the other consequences of having that solution.
Yeah, and we've talked about this in the past with we had an episode quite a while back where we talked about this kind of like a slippery slope that games like World of Warcraft have gone down, where as the developers respond to those immediate emotional reactions of somebody like, I want this to be faster, and then it gets faster, but now all of a sudden everything else feels slower, and then you fix those things, and now everything else feels worse, right? And so you can't just make a change to one thing and then have that just live in it.
Well, this happened with the retry button in Levelhead, didn't it?
Yes. Yeah. So it used to be the case that the replay button was completely instant. Like you just hit replay and you just restart, right? And it was also the case that, so we had the death animation, right? And so...
Yeah, so if you died, it took 1.5 seconds.
0.7 seconds.
0.7 seconds.
Which it still does about.
Yeah. And then if you hit the retry button, it's instant. Just snap you back.
And so all of a sudden, the death animation felt unfathomably long. Like nobody's going to want to sit through a 0.7 seconds to restart the level.
Reports from our QA team where they're like, oh, you guys got to make this death animation faster because I just can't take it.
Yeah. So what we did is we changed the restart thing to just kill you. So like you don't see the full like GR18 getting hit by something, but instead you just kind of like burst and teleport back to the beginning. But it takes the same amount of time as the death animation, just about. So now the retry button basically is the death button, and now they're the same. And then all of a sudden, there's no complaints, right? Yeah. So by introducing a convenience, you actually create a perception of other things being bad.
Yeah. And this is probably, I think, maybe our only fear about being in early access and exposed to community feedback for a long period of time, which is you have to be very much on your guard.
Yeah, because we're basically we'll be living in a bubble with all of our early access players,
and it's very easy to get wrapped up in people being angry about stuff.
Yeah, well, especially because it's a relatively small, more vocal pool that's also going to be actively involved in our community, which means like
adopters.
Yeah, we'll just be much more aware of their opinions versus sort of the larger masses when you do a full game launch of people who don't really come into your network and participate fully.
I would say I haven't really seen anybody angry. There's been some good discussion and some good, well thought out feedback and all that stuff. But so far it's been generally very positive and cordial. So all right, I want to hit one last question, which is a super quick one, so it should be no problem. This is by Wigglyhonk Quickpie, who says, I'm sure you've all seen the recent controversy surrounding the Epic Game Store and exclusivity deals. I feel like most of the public conversations surrounding the issue pretty much ignore the point of view of developers and game studios. So it's all about like platform and player, right? Is exclusivity inherently anti-consumer, or is it just the way that Epic is handling the issue that's causing the uproar? Also, how do you think the recent events will affect long-term success of the platform?
Two things. I think there's. I don't.
This is just like a real quick snap.
Yeah. Well, my quick snap judgment is there's no way that Epic could handle this to not cause an uproar.
Yeah. Because they're trying to take on Steam.
Yeah. Two is that this is not anti-consumer at all because of the fact that the platform is free and people are already on the actual platform, which is PC. So this is a free store that you get to go get your game on. There's not actually a barrier to entry. There's not. You can argue all day like I don't want to download another client. I don't care. That doesn't matter. The reality
There's no
is,
real barrier.
If you want anti-consumer, that's when you start getting into actual exclusivity problems when it comes to like I'm on an Xbox and I want to play God of War, which is one of the best games apparently of all time, but it's on PlayStation. Is it anti-consumer? I don't know, because Sony paid for it.
Yeah,
the only reason it got to exist was because it's on.
I would say
I think it sucks from the consumer standpoint.
It sucks, but
it's not anti-consumer.
Yeah, well, and there's questions about just general availability. So like one thing, for example, is like our game is not out on the Switch, and we plan on getting it on the Switch at some point, and we do have a number of people who were hoping that it would be on the Switch earlier, and it's not, right? Which means that if you want to think about it in these terms, we are exclusively on Steam right now.
Right. We're giving Steam an exclusivity window while we're in early access, basically, right?
But you could still get it. Like if you have a Windows PC, you still have a way to play the game, right?
Yeah.
But if you got a Mac instead, now you can't play.
I think importantly, the note is that anti-consumerism is where the interests of the business are put in front of the interests of the consumer. And I think my issue with the framing generally is that the idea that is always a bad thing is a little weird, especially when you're talking about small studios, when you're talking about game studios. Because essentially, if you're talking about, we got an exclusivity deal, for example, with Epic, and like they're paying us $1 million.
This didn't happen, but if it
happened. Well, actually, no, I wouldn't even frame it that way. If we're talking about like the interest of the business or put ahead of the interest of the
that's what the definition is of it. Like I put it in the podcast doc.
Okay. Because I would argue that under that definition, everything a business does is anti-consumer because charging money for something is against the interest of the consumer because they want a free thing.
For free,
right.
And so I think it's an interesting framing, and it's very useful. I think we were talking about really big, like monstrous companies who are doing frankly horrible things, like many telecom companies. I think that's the easiest one where you're like very anti-consumer.
Yeah, I think you need to be a monopoly before you can be anti-consumer.
Yeah, in a lot of ways. Yeah. And so I think I think the Epic Store is doing it the only way they can, and I think people complaining about it and calling it anti-consumer is really taking a word to mean something that it literally does not apply in this scenario. The fact that you have to go download a downloader, like this is not. And
if you are one of the 300 whatever million people who've been playing Fortnite, you already have that thing on your desktop anyway.
So I don't know. It just sounds dumb. It's very it's silly. It's one of those things where I'm like, why is this what you're torn up about?
Of all the things
that you're torn up about, like why this?
Well, I mean, thinking about it too. So, and then coming back to the perspective of the developer, I tend to agree that the conversation tends to be about the players being upset and the platforms being quote anti-consumer. Right. The developers are trying to mitigate risk.
Yeah, that's the whole thing.
Their thing is
making products and mitigating risk of launch.
They can keep on making.
Yeah, they got a few goals. Like they want to make really good games. They want to get those games into the hands of players, and they want to make enough money that they can keep doing the first two things, right? Yep. And so exclusivity deals in a lot of cases actually guarantee all of them.
That's the important note, I think.
And you never get guarantees in business. Yeah. Like it's crazy that you get that. If you get that opportunity, somebody comes to you like, hey, we're going to give you $40 million or something. And then you could say, no,
I'm just going to risk it.
I'm just going to hope that I make that same amount of money somewhere else, even though I have no idea whether that's possible. Right. Yeah. Like, why would you do that? You know?
And I think, when you look at it in the long run, I think, especially again,
I just made that number up. I don't know if there's anybody actually getting that much money.
Like when you look at the long run also for this from a dev standpoint, it also is actually 100% in the interest of your gaming audience, whoever you're serving. With Borderlands, for example, if you want more Borderlands games, guess what? Like Epic just guaranteed you're going to have more Borderlands games.
Yeah, because they guaranteed a successful title.
Yep. Right. So it's again, to me, it feels like one of those emotional things where it's not resonating past the moment, past the narrowness of being like, oh, it kind of stings that Borderlands isn't on my preferred platform, but I can still get it literally next door. It's free to get. Right, it's free to download.
I need to click a play button on this window instead of a play button on that window.
And then the reality that has actually guaranteed that there's going to be more of the same content you like. I think it's really missing the forest for the trees in a lot of ways.
Yeah, and I do think there are enough people kind of arguing kind of exactly this case that people are kind of becoming more aware of the reality of the situation, but they're basically chasing this framing where they want it to be the case that this is bad, right? And because the most recent thing I saw,
because it's annoying.
It's just honestly to me that's all it is. It's like
annoying.
Opening 2 launchers is annoying. Yeah. I get it. I agree.
It's annoying, sure.
Yeah.
But the most recent one I saw was somebody basically saying like, yes, like all of this is true, but in the end, even if somebody is getting a exclusivity deal, making a lot more money, all that money is going to the publisher. The developers don't even see it. It's like that's like the final. That's where they have left. You know, it's like just chasing the gap of where they have an argument left, which is not true on any stretch. And yeah, of course, like if you've got a company with a CEO that now just gets a bonus where they just literally take all of that money, which is not how business works actually. Yeah, no. But the idea that somehow developers and publishers are decoupled and the money involved is decoupled is
it's
really
often
weird.
Proportional. You know, if the game makes more money, the publisher makes more money, and the developer makes more money, and everybody's
because the publisher pays the developer, and if the developer has to go off on their own without a publisher because their publisher sunk or didn't have enough money, because a lot of what a publisher does is build up a war chest because they have to spend $500 million on advertising, for example, and another $500 million on a game development project. So they need as much of a war chest as they can have. And we get like all of us can be upset about, CEOs making infinite money, all this kind of stuff, and basically feeling like your money's going there, right? We can all be upset about that, definitely. But it's not
it's not related to.
That's not really related. That's just a different problem.
Yeah. And it's also, I think you also need to decouple issues with the specific problem versus the general situation. So if you do have some kind of an issue with the way that Epic does business, or with them as a company, or with just various aspects of that company, and you don't want to buy things through their store, then that's fine. Like it's a fine stance to take.
Yeah.
but exclusivity sort of on the face of it, not with Epic Store, but just like as a concept, is fine.
Yeah.
You know, it's not ideal, but the studios still have to take care of themselves.
Yeah. Well, that's basically what I see is exclusivity is at best annoying for players and at worst, problematic for players because it puts up a barrier that they can't surmount.
Yeah. I still haven't gotten to play God of War the last.
Yeah. So I agree 100% that for players, exclusivity is always bad. Just like it is, right? In terms of your immediate experience,
unless you just happen to be on the
exactly
on the platform
right. But for developers, it's often completely required, in that your entire funding requires exclusivity, or is the only way you can guarantee a long-term future in which you can make more games. So when it comes to a barrier, it's like this. For any given player, there might be a barrier with exclusivity that now just like means I don't get to play this game, right? But that same barrier to you also means that other players who can play that game will also get to see more games like that from that same developer in the future.
Get to play it.
Or just get to play it, period.
Yeah, funding. I mean, I think this is one of the things. People know that games cost a lot, but I do not think people have like a good grasp on what that means. Like,
it was revealed too, even
so much to make.
Yeah, even like on Saturday, somebody was like doing some crunching to try to figure out how much money we made off of Levelhead. And they're like, oh, I bet they're really happy about where they're at. Like, I'd be over the moon. And we're not even coming close to covering our budget. You know?
Nope.
Not yet, anyway.
Yeah,
it's just a slow burn. You know?
Yeah, it's very expensive.
Yeah, which we didn't anticipate, but it's important to note.
Yeah,
you know, you fund a studio for a year and a half, and once you have like contractors and rent and taxes and like everything
full-time employees, you got insurance and you got all the things.
There's a lot. There's a lot of numbers,
and we're a tiny company.
Yeah,
we're a tiny company.
I can't even imagine.
In the Midwest, right? Yeah. Like the amount that you have to scale this kind of thing up.
I still remember when shortly after we launched Crashlands, I think it was Firewatch came out, and we were looking at their numbers. We were like, wow, they're doing great. And then we saw that their studio was 12 people in San Francisco, and we're like, oh, maybe they're not.
Yeah, maybe not.
Because again, like there's two sides of that. You know, there's the expenses and there's the income.
If their numbers were our numbers, we would have broken even in a quarter of a second. But you know, for them, it was maybe.
But maybe took them a bit longer.
Couple of weeks or a month or who knows.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, I think it covers it.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah, there's a lot. There's a lot of layers to it. So, all right. Well, that's all the time we have for this week. We'd like to thank our producers, Fat Bard and Jen Coster, for putting the podcast together. Thanks to our community moderators who are keeping our Discord running. And to get more involved in the Butterscotch community, you can go to podcast.bscotch.net, where we've got links to all kinds of stuff. A way for you to donate, as well as links to the podcast archives.
Also, go buy Levelhead.
Yeah, go
do that.
Just go buy it.
Give us a thumb.
It's good.
An upward thumb.
It is good.
Yeah. Thank you all for listening, and we'll see you next week.
Goodbye.
Bye.